The holographic billboards towering over Helion City's central plaza flashed with the same message in 12 galactic languages. Honor Challenge, Acreon Champion versus Earth Representative. Beneath the scrolling text, the stern face of Rhea Lara Vaughn glared down at passers-by. Her violet eyes narrowed in contempt, silver-blue skin gleaming like polished metal. The image of the Earth Representative remained conspicuously blank. Captain Marcus Hale stared up at the billboard from the observation deck of the Galactic Alliance headquarters, his stomach knotting. 3 days. In 3 days, someone from Earth would face the legendary Acreon warrior in combat. He was just thankful it wouldn't be him. "Quite the spectacle they're making of it," said a voice behind him. Marcus turned to find Lieutenant Colonel Elena Miles approaching, her crisp Terran Corps uniform bearing the insignia of Earth's diplomatic division. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation bun, but her expression was uncharacteristically troubled. "Can you blame them?" Marcus replied. "The Acreons have been pushing for this challenge for months. At least the Alliance finally got them to agree to non-lethal combat protocols." Elena's frown deepened. "That's actually why I'm here. Marcus, we have a situation." Something in her tone made Marcus's blood run cold. "What kind of situation?" "Major Wilson was injured during final preparations this morning. Gravity calibration malfunction in the training chamber. He's stable, but he won't be fighting anyone for at least 6 weeks." Marcus nodded slowly, relieved it wasn't worse. "So they'll postpone the challenge?" "The Acreon High Command refuses. They're claiming it would be a sign of human weakness. Surely we have other qualified combatants who—" "The Alliance Council just finished an emergency session," Elena interrupted, her expression grave. "They've selected a replacement." Marcus felt a chill run up his spine as he suddenly understood why Elena had sought him out personally. "No, I'm sorry. Marcus, your name came up repeatedly. Your tactical analysis of Acreon combat techniques was apparently very impressive. And your background as an interplanetary observer gives you diplomatic status that—" "I'm a strategist, not a fighter," Marcus protested, his voice rising. "I study patterns, weaknesses. I don't exploit them personally in combat. Which is precisely why the Council believes you have the best chance of success," Elena said firmly. "You understand the Acreons better than almost anyone in the Corps." Marcus laughed bitterly. "Understanding them won't stop Rhea Lara Vaughn from tearing me apart. Have you seen her combat record? 17 consecutive victories in interspecies tournaments. 3 of her opponents never fought again." Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. "The Council's decision is final. Marcus, for what it's worth, I argued against it." Marcus turned back to the billboard, where Rhea Lara's cold eyes seemed to stare directly at him. He suppressed a shudder. "Does she know yet who she'll be fighting?" "The official announcement goes out in an hour," Elena replied. "You have until then to start preparing." As Elena walked away, Marcus continued staring at his soon-to-be opponent's face. In 3 days, his image would fill that blank space beside hers. In 3 days, he would either make history or become another casualty in Rhea Lara Vaughn's impressive list of conquered adversaries. The faint humming of the artificial gravity generators was the only sound in his quarters as Marcus reviewed the combat footage for the 12th time. On the holographic display, Rhea Lara Vaughn moved with impossible grace, her specialized Acreon combat armor enhancing her already formidable biological advantages. Her opponent, a Centaurian gladiator twice her size, charged forward only to be flipped over her shoulder with ridiculous ease. Marcus paused the footage, zooming in on Rhea Lara's stance just before the counter-move. There was something there, a pattern, a vulnerability, perhaps, but he couldn't quite identify it. "Computer, replay sequence at 1/4 speed," he commanded. As the footage slowed, Marcus leaned forward, eyes narrowed in concentration. There, just before the Centaurian attacked. Rhea Lara's biomechanical armor pulsed with a subtle blue glow around her joints. Then, as she executed her counter move, the glow intensified momentarily before fading to its baseline. Computer, analyze energy signatures in the Acreon's armor during combat sequence. The computer hummed, then displayed a graph showing energy fluctuations. Marcus studied it carefully, noting the predictable pattern: energy buildup, explosive release during action, brief recovery period. Standard Acreon combat enhancement, but with one peculiarity: the recovery period lasted exactly 2.3 seconds. A potential weakness, perhaps, but exploiting a 2.3-second window against an opponent of Rhea Lara's caliber seemed nearly impossible. Still, it was something. A chime at his door interrupted his analysis. "Enter," Marcus called, minimizing the holographic display. The door slid open to reveal Lieutenant Sorensen, one of the junior tactical officers who had worked under Marcus on several projects. "Captain Hale," Sorensen said with a respectful nod. "I came to wish you luck. The announcement just went public." Marcus grimaced. "How bad is the reaction?" "Mixed. The Earth delegation is putting on a brave face, but the betting odds..." Sorensen trailed off awkwardly. "That bad, huh?" "Let's just say the Regellian bookmakers are offering 15 to 1 against you." Marcus laughed humorlessly. "I'd bet against me too." "Sir, with all due respect, many of us believe you have a chance. Your analytical skills are unmatched, and analysis won't block a punch, Lieutenant," Marcus interrupted. "But I appreciate the sentiment." Sorensen hesitated, then pulled out a small data chip. "Some of us compiled additional intelligence on Rhea Lara Vorn's fighting style. Combat footage the official databases don't have. Unofficial sources, but reliable." Marcus accepted the chip with genuine surprise. "Thank you. This could be invaluable." After Sorensen left, Marcus inserted the chip into his console. New footage appeared, showing Rhea Lara in training sessions rather than formal combat. Here, without the pressure of performance, her movements were slightly different, more natural, less theatrical. And most importantly, the energy fluctuations in her armor followed the same pattern. For the first time since receiving the assignment, Marcus felt a faint glimmer of hope. Not much, but enough to formulate the beginnings of a strategy. He worked through the night, analyzing every frame of footage, mapping Rhea Lara's movements, identifying patterns in her combat style. By morning, he had compiled a comprehensive profile and a potential path to victory that, while narrow, at least existed. Now he just needed to prepare his body as thoroughly as he had prepared his mind. The training facility allocated to Marcus was state-of-the-art, with gravity and atmospheric controls that could mimic any inhabited world in the Alliance. For his purposes, Marcus had configured it to match the conditions of the Acreon moon where the challenge would take place, slightly higher gravity than Earth standard, with a denser atmosphere rich in nitrogen compounds. "Begin simulation," Marcus commanded. The facility's combat drones activated, their holographic shells reconfiguring to approximate Rhea Lara's size and physical capabilities. They weren't a perfect match. No simulation could fully capture the fluid grace of an Acreon warrior, but they would serve for basic practice. "Attack pattern Alpha," he ordered, settling into a defensive stance. The first drone charged, mimicking Rhea Lara's favorite opening move. Marcus sidestepped, careful not to counterattack immediately. Instead, he focused on dodging, preserving his energy while forcing the drone to expend its own. After several minutes of this pattern, the drone's attacks became more aggressive, more desperate, exactly as he'd anticipated. "End simulation," Marcus called, breathing heavily. The drones deactivated, returning to their docking stations. "Interesting strategy," came a voice from the entrance. "Or lack thereof." Marcus turned to find Elena watching him, arms crossed. "I was practicing evasion techniques." I noticed. You didn't throw a single punch. That's the point, Marcus explained, wiping sweat from his brow. Raya expects aggression from her opponents. It's what she's trained to counter, but if I focus entirely on defense... You'll still lose, Elena pointed out bluntly. You can't win a match by dodging forever. I don't need to dodge forever. Just long enough to identify the right moment to strike. Marcus paused, considering how much to reveal. I've been studying her combat pattern. There's a rhythm to it, a cycle in her biomechanical enhancements. If I can disrupt that cycle at precisely the right moment... Elena raised an eyebrow. One perfect strike? That's your strategy? It's not about strength, Marcus insisted. It's about timing and leverage, using her own force against her. It's risky. Marcus, riskier than going toe-to-toe with a warrior who can bench press a shuttlecraft? He shook his head. This is my only chance. Elena, I'm not going to outmuscle an Acreon, especially not their champion, but I might be able to outsmart her. Elena studied him for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. The council is sending a representative to observe your training tomorrow. Be ready to demonstrate some actual fighting, or they might replace you. After she left, Marcus returned to his simulation, this time programming the drones to attack in formation. As they circled him, he focused on his breathing, on staying centered and balanced. He would need perfect control when facing Raya, not just of his body, but of his emotions as well. For the next 3 hours, he practiced dodging, always moving, never engaging directly. It wasn't flashy, and it certainly wouldn't impress the council's representative, but it was his path to survival. Tomorrow, he would give them the show they wanted, but when he faced Raya in the actual challenge, he would follow his own strategy, the only one that offered even a slim hope of victory. The diplomatic quarter of Helion City hummed with activity as representatives from a dozen worlds gathered for pre-challenge functions. Marcus, uncomfortable in his formal Terran Corps dress uniform, navigated through clusters of aliens at the Alliance reception, nodding politely to those who acknowledged him. Most didn't. Word of his selection as Earth's champion had spread quickly, along with the general consensus that he was woefully outmatched. The pitying glances from the Arcturian delegation were almost worse than the dismissive sneers from the Regelians. So you're the human sacrifice, a gravelly voice declared. Marcus turned to find himself face-to-face with a stocky Acreon male. Shorter than average for his species, but broad-shouldered and imposing nonetheless. His silver-blue skin was darker than Raya, marked with ritualistic scarification that identified him as a member of the warrior caste. I prefer Earth representative, Marcus replied evenly. The Acreon barked a laugh. I am Sergeant Torak, combat instructor to Champion Vorn. I came to evaluate you myself. His violet eyes scanned Marcus from head to toe, unimpressed. Disappointing. I had hoped they would at least send someone physically impressive. Marcus kept his expression neutral. Sorry to disappoint. It is no matter. The outcome was never in question. Torak leaned closer, his breath smelling faintly of metal. I merely wish to understand why Earth would select such an obvious, what is your term, underdog? Perhaps we value different qualities in our champions, Marcus suggested mildly. Torak's expression hardened. If you are implying that Raya lacks intelligence, human, you are making a grave error. She is as brilliant as she is powerful. I meant no offense, Marcus said quickly. I've studied Champion Vorn's combat record extensively. Her tactical acumen is evident in every match. This seemed to mollify Torak slightly. At least you have done your research. It will not help you, but it shows respect. He glanced across the room, and Marcus followed his gaze to where Raya herself had just entered. She was taller than Marcus had expected, easily 2 meters in height, with the characteristic lean musculature of the Acreon elite. Her silver-blue skin gleamed under the reception lights, and her close-cropped silver hair accentuated her sharp features. She moved with predatory grace, acknowledging the various dignitaries with regal nods. "She has not lost a challenge in 7 years," Torak said, pride evident in his voice. "You will be her 18th consecutive victory." Before Marcus could respond, Rayalara's gaze swept the room and locked onto him. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and she changed direction, moving purposefully toward them. "Champion Vaughn," Torak greeted her with a respectful bow. "I was just becoming acquainted with your opponent." Rayalara's violet eyes assessed Marcus coldly. "This is the human champion?" she asked, her voice surprisingly melodic despite its dismissive tone. "I expected someone more." Marcus met her gaze steadily. "Captain Marcus Hale, Terran Corps." "A strategist," she said, demonstrating that she'd researched him as well. "Not a warrior. The line between the two isn't always clear," Marcus replied. A hint of amusement flickered across her face. "In this case, I believe it is." She circled him slowly, making no attempt to hide her assessment. "Your physiology is unremarkable, even for a human male. Your stance suggests basic combat training, but nothing exceptional." She stopped in front of him again. "Why did they choose you?" The question seemed genuinely curious rather than mocking, which surprised Marcus. "Perhaps for the same reason you accepted the challenge," he answered carefully. "To prove something." Her eyes narrowed. "I have nothing to prove. My record speaks for itself." "Then why agree to fight a representative from Earth specifically? There are stronger species in the Alliance." Rayalara's expression hardened. "Because your kind talks endlessly about peace and cooperation, yet positions warships at every border. You claim to value diplomacy over strength, yet secretly build weapons that could destroy worlds. The galaxy should know the truth about humanity, that beneath your words lies weakness." The vehemence in her voice took Marcus aback. This wasn't just professional pride or species chauvinism, this was personal. "You seem to have strong opinions about humans," he observed. "I have strong opinions about hypocrisy," she corrected. "Be grateful for the non-lethal protocols. Captain Hale, they're the only reason you'll walk away from our encounter." With that, she turned and strode away, Torak following in her wake. Marcus released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The encounter had been enlightening, if not encouraging. Rayalara's contempt for humans ran deeper than he'd anticipated, which made her potentially more dangerous, but also more predictable. "Making friends?" Elena asked, appearing at his side with 2 glasses of blue Centaurian wine. Marcus accepted one gratefully. "Getting to know my opponent. And she hates humans, or at least, she hates what she thinks we represent." He took a sip of the wine, welcoming its calming effect. "Did you know she specifically requested a human opponent?" Elena nodded grimly. The Alliance Council was divided on accepting the challenge at all. Some saw it as a provocation, others as an opportunity for diplomatic breakthrough. She glanced in Rayalara's direction. The compromise was non-lethal combat under supervised conditions. "Lucky me," Marcus muttered. "How's your training coming along?" Marcus shrugged. "As well as can be expected with 2 days to prepare for a champion who's been training her entire life. The council representative seemed satisfied with your demonstration this morning," Elena offered encouragingly. "I showed them what they wanted to see." Marcus finished his wine. "But my actual strategy remains the same." Elena studied him for a moment. "You really believe you can win, don't you?" "Win?" Marcus laughed softly. "No, but survive with dignity intact? Maybe." He set down his empty glass. "And sometimes, that's victory enough." As the reception continued around them, Marcus kept Rhaelara in his peripheral vision, noting how she moved through the crowd, how she carried herself. Every observation, every detail, might prove useful in the challenge to come. He would need every advantage he could get. The Acreon training facility was a stark contrast to the polished elegance of the Alliance reception. Raw metal walls, unadorned except for weapons racks and monitoring equipment, surrounded a sparring arena where Rhaelara Vaughn methodically dismantled 3 combat drones simultaneously. Her movements were fluid, economical, devastatingly effective. No wasted energy, no theatrical flourishes, just pure combat efficiency. As the final drone collapsed, its central processor shattered by a precise strike. She straightened and turned to where Torak observed from the edge of the arena. "Adequate," he pronounced, his traditional Acreon understatement belied by the pride in his eyes. "Your form is excellent, your timing impeccable." Rhaelara nodded, accepting the assessment without visible emotion. "The human. Tell me what you learned about him." Torak grunted. "Little of value. He is intelligent, observant. He watched you carefully at the reception." "Of course he did. He's searching for weaknesses." Rhaelara moved to a hydration station, allowing the facility's automated systems to replenish her electrolytes. "He won't find any." "Perhaps not," Torak agreed. "But do not underestimate him because of his species. There is something unexpected about this one." Rhaelara raised an eyebrow. "You sound concerned, old friend, about a human." "Not concerned. Cautious. It is strange that they would select a strategist rather than their strongest warrior. They must have a reason." "Their reason is irrelevant. In the arena, only action matters, not intention." Rhaelara activated a holographic display showing Marcus's service record. "Captain Marcus Hale, decorated for analytical work during the Proxima incident. No notable combat achievements." She dismissed the display with a wave. "He will be easy to break." Torak moved to the weapons rack, selecting a training staff. "Then you won't mind one final practice session?" Rhaelara smiled thinly, the expression more predatory than amused. "Always." They circled each other in the center of the arena, training staffs at the ready. Torak struck first, a flurry of attacks that would have overwhelmed most opponents. Rhaelara parried each one effortlessly, her biomechanical armor pulsing with energy as she countered with a strike of her own. Torak blocked it, but the force drove him back several steps. "Good," he grunted, "but you telegraphed that move slightly. A observant opponent might notice." "A observant opponent would still need the speed to exploit it," Rhaelara countered, launching into another attack sequence. They continued sparring, their movements accelerating until they became nearly a blur. Finally, Rhaelara executed a complex feint followed by a sweeping leg strike that sent Torak crashing to the floor. She extended a hand to help him up. "Any other critiques, instructor?" Torak accepted her assistance, rising with a grimace. "None. You are ready," he hesitated, then added, "Just remember that this match has significance beyond personal victory. You represent all Acreons in the eyes of the Alliance. I am aware of my responsibilities." Rhaelara replied, her tone cooling slightly. "The human will fall, and, with him, the myth of their species' cleverness compensating for their physical inadequacies." Torak studied her for a moment. "You truly despise them, don't you?" "I despise their pretense," she corrected. "They act as equals among species far superior, demanding respect they have not earned through strength or achievement. Yet they have built an impressive civilization from humble beginnings." Torak observed. "Some would consider that an achievement." Rhaelara's eyes narrowed. "You sound like my sister. Has she been sending you her university treatises on interspecies cultural relativism again?" Torak chuckled. "Shira has perspective that the warrior caste sometimes lacks. It does not harm me to read her thoughts." Perspective, Rhaelara scoffed. Academic theory from someone who has never faced an enemy in combat. Different battles, different weapons, Torak replied philosophically. Now, shall we review the recorded footage of your opponent's training session? Limited as it may be, it might reveal something of his strategy. Rhaelara nodded, though her expression suggested she considered it a waste of time. As they moved to the analysis station, she cast one last glance at the arena where, in just over 24 hours, she would face the human champion. She felt no anxiety, no doubt, only a serene certainty in her inevitable victory, and what it would mean for her people standing in the Galactic Alliance. Dawn broke over the lunar arena, casting long shadows across the combat platform that had been constructed specifically for the Honor Challenge. Located on the smallest of the Acreon moons, the arena had been designed to provide neutral territory while still accommodating the atmospheric preferences of both species. Marcus stood at the preparation chamber's viewport, gazing out at the arena that would soon determine his fate. Its circular platform was surrounded by tiered seating for dignitaries and officials, with massive holographic projectors to broadcast the event throughout Alliance space. Impressive, isn't it? Elena said, joining him at the viewport. The Acreons spared no expense. They're making a statement, Marcus replied. This isn't just combat to them, it's theater, propaganda. Elena nodded grimly. The Alliance Council is concerned about the potential fallout, regardless of the outcome, if you lose. When I lose, Marcus corrected. If you lose, Elena insisted. It could embolden the Acreon hardliners who've been pushing for greater autonomy within the Alliance, but if by some miracle you win, they might see it as humiliation, a provocation. Marcus turned from the viewport. I know the stakes. Elena, then you understand why the Council has advised a respectful performance. Marcus raised an eyebrow. They want me to lose gracefully. They want you to demonstrate human dignity and resilience, without unnecessarily antagonizing a militarily superior species. Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. In diplomatic terms, they're asking you to lose well. And what do you want? Elena's professional mask slipped for a moment, revealing genuine concern. I want you to survive, Marcus. Everything else is secondary. A chime sounded, indicating that the preparation period was nearing its end. Elena straightened, her expression returning to its official neutrality. The medical team has finished the pre-combat examination of your opponent, she reported. Rhaelara Vorn is, as expected, in peak physical condition. Her biomechanical enhancements have been verified as within regulation parameters. And the combat protocols? Non-lethal restrictions are in place and have been accepted by both sides. The match ends with submission, incapacitation, or at the discretion of the Alliance adjudicator. Marcus nodded, turning to the equipment table where his combat gear was laid out. The Terran Corps had provided a lightweight exosuit, not nearly as advanced as Rhaelara's biomechanical armor, but offering some protection and minimal strength enhancement. As he began suiting up, Elena moved toward the exit. I'll be in the diplomatic observation box with the rest of the Earth delegation. Elena, Marcus called as she reached the door. When she turned back, he asked, if I actually managed to win this thing, hypothetically speaking, would it really be so disastrous for Alliance relations? She considered the question seriously. Not if handled correctly. A respectful victory might actually improve humanity's standing. A faint smile touched her lips. Just don't make it look too easy. After she left, Marcus completed his preparations in silence. The exosuit powered up with a faint hum, its neural interface syncing with his nervous system. It wasn't much, nothing compared to Acreon technology, but it might give him the split-second advantage he needed for his strategy to work. A final chime sounded, followed by a mechanical voice. Earth representative, proceed to entrance platform. Marcus took a deep breath. centering himself. Then he strode forward, toward the arena and whatever fate awaited him there. The roar of the crowd hit Marcus like a physical force as he emerged onto the combat platform. Thousands of spectators filled the tiered seating, with millions more watching via holographic transmission throughout Alliance space. The stakes of this friendly competition were evident in the heavy security presence and the tense expressions of the Alliance Council members in their elevated observation box. Across the platform, Ryalara Vorn made her entrance to thunderous applause from the Acreon section of the audience. Her biomechanical combat armor gleamed silver blue under the arena lights, accentuating her already impressive physique. Unlike the utilitarian design of Marcus's exosuit, Ryalara's armor featured elaborate engravings depicting her previous victories, a walking monument to her prowess. They approached the center of the platform where a stern-faced Arcturian official waited. As the designated neutral adjudicator, the Arcturian would enforce the combat protocols and declare the victor. "Representatives of Earth and Acreon," the adjudicator announced, voice amplified throughout the arena. "You have both accepted the terms of this honor challenge. Combat will continue until submission, incapacitation, or my intervention. Lethal force is prohibited." He fixed each of them with a penetrating gaze. "Is this understood?" "Understood," Marcus confirmed. Ryalara nodded curtly. "Agreed. Then take your positions." As they moved to opposite sides of the platform, Ryalara's voice carried to Marcus, pitched low enough that only he could hear. "I will not prolong your humiliation. Human, submit quickly, and you may retain some dignity." Marcus didn't respond, focusing instead on his breathing, on the calm center he would need to maintain throughout the coming battle. He settled into a defensive stance, knees slightly bent, weight balanced. The adjudicator raised his hand, then brought it down sharply. "Begin." Ryalara moved with explosive speed, covering the distance between them in a blur of motion. Her opening strike, a straight punch aimed at Marcus's chest, carried enough force to shatter reinforced concrete. Instead of attempting to block, Marcus pivoted sideways, allowing the punch to miss by centimeters. Ryalara's momentum carried her slightly past him, and he used the opportunity to create distance between them again. The Acreon crowd murmured in surprise. They had expected the human to fall in the first exchange. Ryalara turned, eyes narrowing. "Evasion is not combat, human. Yet here I stand," Marcus replied evenly, resuming his defensive stance. She attacked again, this time with a complex combination of strikes designed to limit his escape options. Again. Marcus dodged and weaved, making no attempt to counter, focusing entirely on avoiding contact. After the third such exchange, frustration began to show in Ryalara's movements. Her attacks became more aggressive, more committed, exactly as Marcus had hoped. He continued his strategy of pure evasion, watching carefully for the energy fluctuations in her armor that would signal his opportunity. The crowd's initial excitement was giving way to confusion and, in some quarters, derision. Calls of "fight back" and "coward" echoed from the Acreon section. "Is this how humans demonstrate honor?" Ryalara taunted, circling him predatorily. "By running?" "Honor takes many forms," Marcus replied, maintaining his focus. "Patience is one of them." This seemed to infuriate her. She launched into her most aggressive sequence yet, a blinding series of strikes that forced Marcus to the edge of the platform. For a moment, it seemed he had nowhere left to retreat. Then he ducked under her guard and rolled past her, creating space once more. The pattern continued for several minutes, Ryalara attacking with increasing ferocity, Marcus evading by ever-narrowing margins. To the crowd, it appeared the human was merely delaying the inevitable. To the more astute observers, including Elena in the diplomatic box, it was clear that Marcus was executing a deliberate strategy. Ryalara, however, saw only cowardice and disrespect. "Stand and fight," she demanded, her voice carrying across the arena. "Or admit your weakness." Marcus recognized the turning point. Rayalara's frustration had reached its peak, driving her toward the all-out assault he had been waiting for. Her biomechanical armor pulsed with accumulated energy, the blue glow intensifying around her joints. "Very well," he said, shifting his stance subtly. "Let's end this." The change in his demeanor triggered Rayalara's predatory instincts. She charged, committing fully to a devastating attack that would overwhelm any defense. Her armor flared brilliantly as it channeled maximum power to enhance her strike. It was exactly what Marcus had been waiting for. Instead of evading again, he stepped into her attack at the last possible moment. Using a technique he had practiced countless times against the training drones, he redirected her momentum with minimal contact, adding his own body weight and the exosuit's enhanced strength at the precise angle needed to create a biomechanical feedback loop in her armor. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The energy Rayalara had built up for her attack suddenly reversed course, flowing back through her armor's neural interface in a disruptive surge. Her eyes widened in shock as her own enhanced strength became her undoing. For a suspended moment, Raylara Vaughn stood frozen, her armor's systems frantically attempting to compensate for the unexpected energy reversal. Then, like a puppet with cut strings, she collapsed to the platform floor, temporarily paralyzed by the neural feedback. The arena fell absolutely silent. Marcus stood over his fallen opponent, scarcely believing the success of his strategy. One move. It had taken just one perfectly timed move to defeat the undefeated champion. The Arcturian adjudicator approached cautiously, verifying Rayalara's condition before raising his hand toward Marcus. "The representative of Earth is victorious by incapacitation." The announcement seemed to break the spell of silence. The human section of the crowd erupted in cheers, while the Acreon spectators sat in stunned disbelief. Among the Alliance Council members, urgent conversations had already begun about the diplomatic implications of this unexpected outcome. Marcus paid no attention to any of this. Instead, he knelt beside Rayalara, whose eyes blazed with humiliation and rage, even as her body remained temporarily unresponsive. "The effect is temporary," he told her quietly. "Your armor's safety protocols will reset within moments." "How?" she demanded, the single word containing volumes of disbelief. "Your armor creates a predictable energy cycle. I simply redirected it at the peak of its output." He offered his hand. "Can you move yet?" Rayalara stared at his extended hand as though it were a serpent. Then, gradually, motion returned to her limbs. Ignoring his offer of assistance, she pushed herself to her feet with deliberate dignity. The arena had grown tense once more, all eyes on the two combatants. The traditional post-challenge protocols called for the victor to claim a symbolic token of triumph, often a personal item or badge of rank from the defeated. Marcus knew that for Rayalara, this public surrender of a trophy would be far more painful than the defeat itself. He also knew that Alliance diplomatic relations might hinge on his next action. He raised his voice so it carried clearly. "No trophy is necessary. Champion Vaughn fought with honor and skill. Her record remains worthy of the highest respect." A murmur ran through the crowd. It was unprecedented for a victor to decline the traditional token. Rayalara's expression was unreadable. "You deny yourself the rights of victory." "I claim a different right," Marcus replied. "The right to acknowledge a worthy opponent and suggest that both our peoples have something to learn from each other." For a long moment, Rayalara said nothing. Then, with visible effort, she inclined her head in the barest acknowledgement. "The challenge is concluded," she stated formally, before turning and striding from the platform without another word. As Marcus made his own exit amid confused but generally positive reaction from the spectators, he caught Elena's eye in the diplomatic box. Her expression mingled relief, disbelief, and a hint of apprehension about what would follow. Because despite the successful outcome, They both knew that in matters of interspecies diplomacy, the aftermath of victory could prove more challenging than combat itself. The post-challenge reception in the Galactic Alliance headquarters was a study in strained diplomacy. Representatives from 24 worlds mingled uneasily, their conversations punctuated by furtive glances toward either Marcus or the Acreon delegation, which had positioned itself in isolated dignity at the far end of the hall. Marcus, still processing his unexpected victory, found himself the reluctant center of attention. Alliance officials, Earth diplomats, and curious dignitaries from neutral worlds all wanted to congratulate him or extract his insights on the match. "I still can't believe it worked," Elena murmured as they momentarily escaped the latest group of well-wishers. "One move. You actually did it." "Barely," Marcus admitted. "If her timing had been off by even a fraction of a second." "But it wasn't. And now you're the talk of the Alliance." Elena nodded toward a cluster of council members who were watching him with newfound interest. "They're already discussing how to leverage your victory in the ongoing trade negotiations with the Acreon hierarchy." Marcus frowned. "That wasn't the point." "No? Then what was the point, Marcus?" Elena asked, genuinely curious. "Why did you decline the victory token?" Before he could answer, they were interrupted by the approach of a stern-faced Acreon female in formal diplomatic attire. Unlike the warrior caste, she lacked the ritual scarification, and her silver hair was worn long, braided elaborately. "Captain Hale," she greeted him with formal correctness. "I am Shara Vaughn, cultural attaché to the Acreon diplomatic mission." Marcus blinked in surprise. "Vaughn, are you Ryalara's sister?" "Yes," Shira's expression remained neutral. "I have been instructed to convey the Acreon High Command's formal acknowledgement of your victory." "Thank you," Marcus replied carefully. "Please convey my respect for Champion Vaughn's skill and courage." Shara studied him for a moment. "Your victory technique was unexpected. Some among our delegation have suggested it was not honorable to exploit a technological vulnerability rather than engage in direct combat." "I understand their perspective," Marcus said diplomatically. "But in my view, true combat involves mind as well as body. Champion Vaughn's physical superiority is undeniable. I simply found a different path to victory." "An interesting philosophy." Shara's tone softened slightly, "and one that aligns with certain progressive elements within Acreon society." She glanced toward her own delegation, where animated discussion was clearly taking place. "Your decision to forego the victory token has caused considerable debate among us." "I meant no disrespect to your traditions," Marcus assured her. "I simply felt that humiliating a worthy opponent served no one's interests." "Indeed." Shara's violet eyes, so similar to her sister's, held a keen intelligence. "Captain Hale, the Acreon Diplomatic Corps would welcome a more private discussion with you regarding the implications of today's events. Would you be amenable to such a meeting?" Marcus exchanged a quick glance with Elena, who gave a subtle nod. "Of course. When?" "1 hour. In the Alliance Council's small conference chamber." Shara inclined her head formally. "Until then." As she departed, Elena leaned closer to Marcus. "That's unexpected. The Acreons usually isolate themselves after any public setback." "She seems different from the warriors we've dealt with," Marcus observed. "The diplomatic caste often is more pragmatic, less bound by traditional honor codes." Elena's expression turned serious. "Be careful, Marcus. This could be an opportunity for genuine breakthrough. Or a trap," he finished. "I know, but I think it's worth the risk." For the next hour, Marcus endured more congratulations and fielded increasingly probing questions about his victory technique. By the time he could politely excuse himself to meet with the Acreon delegation, he was grateful for the escape. The small conference chamber was a neutral space designed for discreet negotiations. When Marcus entered, He was surprised to find not only Shira Vaughn waiting, but Rhaelara herself, along with Torak and two other Acreons he didn't recognize. Rhaelara's expression was rigidly controlled, but the tension in her posture was evident. She had changed from her combat armor into formal Acreon attire that nonetheless hinted at her warrior status through subtle insignia. "Captain Hale," Shira began once the door had sealed behind him, "thank you for joining us. This is Diplomat Nexar of the High Command and Strategic Advisor Kelvan." Marcus nodded respectfully to each. "Thank you for the invitation." "Let us speak plainly," Nexar said, his voice deeper and more resonant than the others. "Today's outcome was problematic for Acreon human relations." "I would have thought the opposite," Marcus replied carefully. "A demonstration that our species can compete on equal terms." "Equal," Rhaelara interrupted, the word sharp with derision. "You did not defeat me in honorable combat. You exploited a technical flaw." "Rhaelara," Shira cautioned, but Marcus held up a hand. "With respect, Champion Vaughn, I disagree. Every warrior brings different strengths to battle. Yours include superior physical capabilities and advanced biomechanical enhancements. Mine include tactical analysis and adaptability. I used my strengths against yours. That is the essence of combat." Torak made a sound that might have been approval. "The human speaks truth, Rhaelara. Would you respect him more if he had attempted to match your strength directly and failed?" Rhaelara's eyes narrowed, but she didn't respond. Strategic Advisor Kelvan, who had been silent until now, leaned forward. "Captain Hale, what was your purpose in declining the victory token? Was it a calculated political move?" "No," Marcus answered honestly. "It was a recognition that public humiliation serves no constructive purpose. Champion Vaughn's record speaks for itself. One defeat doesn't diminish her achievements." "Interesting," Kelvin murmured, "and very un-Acreon in philosophy." "Perhaps," Shira interjected. "That is precisely why it has caused such discussion among our delegation." She turned to her sister. "Rhaelara, you have expressed your view. Now I ask you to listen." After a moment of tension, Rhaelara gave a curt nod. Shira continued. "The honor challenge was proposed by traditional elements within our society to demonstrate Acreon superiority. Instead, it has revealed a fundamental difference in how our species approach conflict." She looked directly at Marcus. "You fought not to dominate, but to survive with dignity intact. And when victory came, you chose respect over triumph." "A weakness," Rhaelara muttered. "A different kind of strength," Shira countered. "One that our people would be wise to understand better." Diplomat Nexar cleared his throat. "The Acreon High Command is divided on how to proceed. Some advocate for a rematch under different protocols. Others suggest we withdraw from certain alliance initiatives to preserve our dignity." "And what do you advocate?" Marcus asked directly. "A third path," Shira answered before Nexar could speak. "We propose a new framework for Acreon human relations, not based on dominance or submission, but on mutual respect and reciprocal exchange." "Responsive honor," Torak added, using an Acreon term that translated imperfectly. "The recognition of different but equally valid paths to worthy achievement." Marcus considered this carefully. Such a framework would need to acknowledge fundamental differences between our species while establishing common ground. "Precisely," Shira agreed, with evident approval. "It would require representatives from both sides willing to challenge traditional thinking." She glanced meaningfully at her sister. "Including those who have experienced firsthand the limitations of the old approach." Rhaelara had been watching the exchange with growing intensity. Now she spoke, her voice controlled but forceful. "You expect me to publicly embrace this philosophy after my defeat?" "I expect you to serve the Acreon people as you always have," Shira replied softly, "by demonstrating true strength, including the strength to evolve." The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to Rhaelara. For a long moment, she remained motionless, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she rose and approached Marcus. "Human," she said, the word no longer carrying its previous contempt. "Captain Hale, you defeated me using your species' advantages. It was unexpected." She paused, visibly struggling with what came next. "But it was not without honor." Marcus stood to meet her gaze directly. "High praise from a warrior of your caliber, Champion Vaughn. If this new framework is to succeed," she continued, "it will need advocates who understand both the warrior's path and the diplomat's vision." Her violet eyes searched his. "Would you be such an advocate for your people?" The question took Marcus by surprise. "I'm a strategist, not a diplomat. Yet you turned combat into diplomacy today," Shara observed. "Few could have managed that." Marcus thought of Elena's concern about the diplomatic fallout, of the Alliance Council's cautious politics, of his own uncertain future after today's unexpected events. Then he looked at Rhaelara, proud, formidable, yet standing before him with a hard-won openness to change. "Yes," he decided, "I would be honored to help build this framework." Rhaelara nodded once, then extended her arm in the traditional Acreon warrior's greeting, forearm to forearm, a gesture rarely offered to other species. Marcus met her grip firmly. In that moment, something shifted between them, not friendship, exactly, but a recognition of mutual respect that transcended their differences. "The Alliance Council will need to be approached carefully," Diplomat Nexar cautioned. "They may see this as an Acreon attempt to save face after defeat. Then we don't approach them as separate delegations," Marcus suggested. "We present a united position, human and Acreon together." Strategic Advisor Kelva nodded approvingly. "Unexpected, effective. The Council won't know how to react." "They'll adapt," Shara said with a hint of a smile, "as we all must." As the meeting continued into detailed planning, Marcus reflected on the strange path that had brought him here. 3 days ago, he had been a reluctant combatant facing near certain defeat. Now he stood at the threshold of a diplomatic breakthrough that might reshape relations between two powerful species. All because he had approached a seemingly impossible challenge with his own unique strengths, rather than trying to match his opponent on her terms. Perhaps there was a broader lesson there, one that both humans and Acreons needed to learn. The Galactic Alliance Council chamber fell silent as the joint delegation entered. The assembled representatives from 27 worlds watched with varying degrees of surprise as Marcus Hale and Rhaelara Vaughn approached the central podium together, followed by their respective diplomatic teams. Council President Thalos, a venerable Arcturian known for his unflappable demeanor, seemed momentarily taken aback by this unprecedented joint appearance. "The Council recognizes the combined delegation from Earth and Acreon," he announced, his voice betraying a hint of confusion. "Honored representatives of the Galactic Alliance," Shara Vaughn began, her diplomatic training evident in her measured tone. "Yesterday's honor challenge between our peoples has created an unexpected opportunity, one we wish to share with this council." Marcus stepped forward. The competition revealed not just differences in our approaches to conflict, but complementary strengths that could benefit both our species and the Alliance as a whole. Rhaelara moved to stand beside him, her warrior's presence commanding attention. "We propose a new framework for interspecies relations, beginning between humans and Acreons, but potentially extending to all Alliance members." A murmur ran through the chamber. The Rigelian representative rose to speak. "This is highly irregular. The honor challenge was meant to resolve tensions, not create new diplomatic initiatives." "With respect," Marcus replied. "Resolving tensions is precisely what we're proposing, but through understanding rather than dominance." "Responsive honor," Rhaelara explained, using the Acreon term. a recognition that different paths to achievement deserve equal respect. For the next hour, the joint delegation outlined their proposal in detail. It included cultural exchange programs, joint military exercises focused on complementary tactics, and diplomatic protocols that acknowledged species differences while establishing common ground for negotiation. The Council's reactions ranged from cautious interest to open skepticism. The Centaurian delegation seemed particularly resistant, while the representatives from newer alliance members showed the most enthusiasm. "This is all very aspirational," Council President Thalos observed when the presentation concluded. "But practical implementation would require significant changes to established protocols." "Change is necessary for growth," Shira countered, "and the alternative is a continuation of the tensions that led to the honor challenge in the first place." The Terran representative, a seasoned diplomat named Ambassador Chen, had been watching the proceedings with keen interest. Now she rose to address the Council. "Earth supports this initiative," she declared. "Captain Hale has been authorized to serve as our liaison to the Joint Implementation Committee, should the Council approve the framework." This announcement, clearly arranged beforehand, seemed to lend the proposal additional legitimacy. Other delegations began signaling their positions, with a majority indicating at least provisional support. As the formal Council vote was called, Marcus caught Elena's eye from where she sat with the Terran military contingent. Her subtle smile conveyed both congratulation and a hint of "I told you so," a reminder that she had seen diplomatic potential in his approach from the beginning. The final tally showed overwhelming approval for a one-year trial of the new framework, with only 3 delegations opposing and 2 abstaining. "The framework is approved for implementation," Council President Thalos announced. "The Joint Terran-Acreon Committee will provide quarterly progress reports." He fixed both Marcus and Rhea Lara with a penetrating gaze. "This Council hopes that the spirit of cooperation demonstrated today will endure beyond the initial enthusiasm." As the session concluded and delegates began to disperse, Rhea Lara turned to Marcus. "The real challenge begins now," she said quietly. "Many on both sides will resist these changes." "Including some of your warriors?" Marcus guessed. "Torak supports us, which will help. But yes, there will be resistance." She studied him with new appreciation. "You anticipated this from the beginning, didn't you? Even during our combat, you were thinking beyond victory." Marcus shook his head. "During combat, I was entirely focused on survival. But afterward," he paused, considering, "I saw an opportunity for something more meaningful than a symbolic triumph." "Responsive honor," Rhea Lara murmured, almost to herself. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your human approach after all." As they left the Council chamber together, Marcus reflected on the irony of their situation. The honor challenge had been designed to establish dominance, to prove that one approach was superior to the other. Instead, it had revealed that true strength might lie in the integration of different perspectives, the warrior's directness and the strategist's foresight, combined to create something neither could achieve alone. 6 months later, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the Galactic Alliance headquarters, watching the sunset over Helion City just as he had on the day he'd first learned of his selection for the honor challenge. The view was the same, but his perspective had changed dramatically. "Admiring your handiwork?" Elena asked, joining him at the viewport. Below them, a newly constructed cultural exchange center bore the distinctive architecture of both Earth and Acreon design philosophies. Angular human practicality blended with flowing Acreon aesthetics. It was one of several tangible results of the responsive honor framework. "Hardly my handiwork alone," Marcus replied. "The Joint Committee has exceeded all expectations." "Don't be modest. The quarterly report to the Council was impressive. Trade up 17%, military incidents down by over 30%, cultural exchange program oversubscribed." Elena smiled. "Your unexpected victory turned out to be just the beginning." "Speaking of unexpected," Marcus said, Have you heard the latest? Raya Lara has been appointed combat instructor for the new Joint Training Initiative. Elena's eyebrows rose. The same Raya Lara who once publicly declared all human males inherently weak? The very same. Marcus chuckled. She's still formidable. Her cadets are terrified of her, but she's become one of our strongest advocates among the Acreon warrior caste. And her sister? Shira has been promoted to senior diplomatic liaison. Between the two of them, they've brought both major Acreon factions into the process. Marcus turned from the viewport to face Elena directly. None of this would have happened if you hadn't convinced the council to select me for the challenge. Elena shook her head. I argued against your selection, remember? I was trying to protect you. Yet, when it mattered, you supported my approach. You saw the potential when others were focused only on the combat itself. Perhaps, Elena conceded, but you're the one who turned defeat into victory with a single move, and then turned victory into partnership with a single gesture. She nodded toward the distant Acreon embassy, where the flag of Earth now flew alongside the Acreon standard. Not bad for a reluctant champion. As they continued discussing the latest developments, Marcus reflected on how dramatically one unexpected outcome could alter the course of history. The honor challenge had been designed to prove superiority through combat, to establish a hierarchy between species. Instead, it had revealed a more profound truth, that true strength often lies not in dominance, but in the wisdom to recognize the value in difference, and the courage to build bridges rather than barriers. In the end, perhaps that was the most honorable victory of all.